What up, loungers? Anyways, real quick, because I can't run my typical commercial, Rescue One CBD, go check them out. Click the link in my bio. Get yourself 20% off. You won't be disappointed. It's got 0.000% THC, which means you won't fail a drug test. So go check them out. It's good flavors, good product, good customer service, great owner. John over there is phenomenal. If you have a problem, let him know. He'll fix it. I promise you that. So other than that, 11 o'clock on Fridays, the Thin Line Rock Station. I'm your host for 2 hours, 11 o'clock Pacific time. And it's a good time, good music. The humor sucks, but it's mine. So, whatever. Anyways, what are we talking about today? This is bugging me. While I was eating lunch today, I flipped on YouTube and wanted to see some stuff. Apple is coming out with some new products, right? They're coming out with a bunch of updates on things that are old school, like their Apple TV, their HomePod. And there was something else that's supposed to be getting an upgrade or rework or whatever you want to call it. But I clicked on this to see about it. And basically this particular YouTuber was blaming another YouTuber for bad information. I'm not really sure how that works. But he's basically saying, well, I have bad information because he has bad information and I'm mad at him for it. Well, at some point you got to take responsibility for what you're doing. Right. And this transfers across everywhere, your whole life. You just have to take responsibility for it. Mistakes are going to happen. Things are going to go wrong, right? Especially, look, if you're a first responder, which I know 99.9% of you watching this are, listening to this are, things go wrong in our industry all the time. There is no textbook call. Nothing goes perfect every single time. It's if you're an EMT or a medic, you know that patients never fall in the middle of the floor. It's always between the toilet and the tub. TC you're on, you can never get a perfect parking spot or protect yourself the best way, or you can't get the door open in the jaws of life. Spreaders jam and they stall out or whatever, right? And so things just don't go according to plan. But if you make that mistake, you got to own it. Just own it. Stop blaming other people and move on. You gotta remember this, right? So this guy's having to apologize to his followers for the misinformation, which is on a whole nother level. And I'll try to, if I remember, I'll go back to that in a second because it's not really misinformation yet. But what you got to remember is accountability is what builds trust with people. And that's something we have to do in our industry. If we make a mistake, we have to, you have to own it. But our accountability, we're being held accountable, and that's what's building our trust, right? And so owning those mistakes, it shows honesty and integrity. I made a mistake. I am sorry. Here's how we're going to fix it, blah, blah, blah. And one of the things that I want to touch on with this is, in job interviews, a lot of times they will have you list something negative about yourself, right? So they go, hey, tell me something negative about you. And then everybody panics and like, what do I say? Because everything I'm going to say is going to sound bad. That is correct. But there's ways to circumvent that, navigate, if you will, around it. And what that is find something that is real and then focus on a plan to fix that, right? And one of the things that I used to use was, and it doesn't really happen to me anymore because I've fixed it, but the negative thing that I used to use in an interview was sometimes I'm late, and it's usually by 1 or 2 minutes. And here's what I'm doing to fix that problem. I've implemented steps X, Y, and Z so that this won't happen. Give myself extra time. And so what you're doing is you're pulling the attention off of that and putting the attention on the plan of how you're going to fix it to build that trust, to build that accountability, right? And instead, people focus on just that negative portion of it. But you've got to own those mistakes. And again, when you do own up to them, it's building that trust again because you're not hiding it. You're not sidestepping it. You're not lying about it. You're just simply, yep, I did it. Let's fix it and move on. And that's what people want to see, right? I had, I worked for a dealership, an RV dealership, and we had a new guy start one time, and they wanted me to train him because he came from sales into the service department side where we fix the RVs, and they wanted me to train him, which was great. I don't mind. I like training people. It's fun to me. Plus I get to teach them just the way I want to teach them, and not to get into bad habits, or if they're bad habits, they're my bad habits, and I don't mind those. So, but he used to just, his biggest thing about me was, he goes, I never understood it. He goes, you would have clients come in screaming at you, pissed off that something happened. So to give you an example, we would fix an RV, and let's say we were gluing a panel back on. Well, we would glue the panel on, we'd look at it, we'd QC it, and we'd put it back on the lot. We'd call the customer, hey, it's ready to go. They'd be like, all right, we'll come down later, pick it up. When they would come and pick it up, the glue just basically wasn't holding, right? Now, it was holding when I last saw it, but maybe it got hot outside, the glue didn't completely dry right, and it just melted, and the thing's problem again. And the customer would be upset, rightfully so. And I would just simply look at them and, you know what? It happens, and I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. I'm imagining it was this. I'm not making an excuse. What I do need is time to fix it. You can either leave it, you can bring it back. We'll fix it, obviously at no additional charge. But just be honest with them. Acknowledge the mistake. Acknowledge it happened. Give them a plan to fix it, and then you better stick to that plan, right? And but my coworker would just be like, these people would come in screaming at you, and then they'd walk out laughing and joking with you. And I'm like, you got to be real with people. You've got to be upfront. Listen, especially when you're talking to other first responders, people are going to see through your bullshit. Plain and simple, they're going to see through it. We know how to read people. If you've been doing this for any amount of time, you should, and most likely do, know how to read people. And you know how to read them quickly, and you know when they're lying, and you know when they're telling the truth. So stop BSing it. Stop blaming it on other people like this YouTuber's doing. I don't understand it. That blows me away. Like, he's literally blaming somebody else for giving him the bad information. Well, why didn't you double check it? Why didn't you verify? What do we do in this industry? All the time in this industry, what do? We trust, but we verify, right? Same thing. That should be it's a given. That's a life lesson right there. That shouldn't just be standard in our job. It's standard in life. Trust, but verify. But these two people don't even know each other. Like, that gets even wilder to me. You're just flat out blaming somebody else for what you regurgitated that he gave you. And he didn't give you, he just put it out there and you took it. So who's at fault? I would say this guy's an idiot. Plain and simple. Like, why? You can't blame somebody else. You took the information voluntarily. And you spewed it, you regurgitated it for your followers. It blows me away. But responsibility builds momentum, right? The denying and the lying just keeps you stuck. You can't move forward. Once you're in there, you're stuck. You've got to move forward. And the only way to move forward is to admit, is to own it, and just move on. And I'm going to use this as a great example. Pfizer and Moderna, and I know you guys are probably tired of COVID and tired of hearing about it, but Pfizer and Moderna have lied consistently. And for those of you who don't believe me, go look at their own website. Go look at the own documentation that they've released. They lied about it. And for years, they've been trying to cover that, and they're stuck. They're stuck in this lie. What should have happened was gotten out, and you got to get out in front of it. I'm sure you guys have heard this. We got to get out in front of this. You do. Get out in front of it. Stop pushing the lie. Get out in front and stop it. And that goes for us in our industry. We've got to start owning our mistakes. Why didn't you make it in that department? Why didn't you get hired? Well, they didn't like me but they're just a bunch of idiots. No, there was something you did that they didn't like. It's not them, it's you. Plain and simple, right? But you've got to, that one's tricky, obviously, because it could just be something simple. They didn't like your haircut that day. It happens, right? Taking responsibility doesn't mean you're a failure, right? It just shows you're human, realistically. Look, nothing is perfect. Nobody's perfect. Jesus. But other than that, nobody is. It's not going to happen, right? And with a mistake, you can admit it. You can say, hey, look, what did I do? If you don't know what you did wrong, ask, what did we do wrong? Be open to it. Be open to criticism at that point. But you've got to own your mistakes. When you're in leadership, you can't run the blame game. That was one thing I learned and I loved about being in the fire department was there's no more blame. It's just own it. If you did it, own it. And obviously you have people who don't do that, but man, when I was in the department, when I was in EMS, look, just own it. It sets the tone, right? Especially if you're in leadership, it's got to set the tone. If the leader screwed up, they need to step up and they need to own it. And this is what I'm talking about with owning up to stuff, right? Owning mistakes. And I think I talked about this recently in another podcast, but if when you're my partner, I will 100% own up to what I do. 100% I will own up to it. But I expect you to do the same. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky. And you got to remember, when I started on a box, I was older in life. I was 28, 29 when I started. 28. Yeah, just about to turn 29. And so I was an adult. I had responsibilities. I had rent to pay. I had bills, right? I couldn't afford to lose my job. And I was working with people who were 20 and a half years old on average. And I can remember just telling them, listen, I won't do anything to jeopardize your job. In return, I expect you to do the same. If I do something wrong that's going to jeopardize your job, your career, I want you to rat me out. I think that's fair. If you're going to cost somebody their job, I think you have every right to rat them out. And I would flat out tell them, if you're going to do something that's going to cost me my job and my source of income, 100% I will rat you out. I will not let you take my job / career away, because everybody knows now times have changed from now until when I was doing this. This was back in 2008. If you were fired from an EMT job, you had a really hard time getting hired with the fire department. You had to explain why, what happened, what were you doing? And now you've got to own up to something that really you didn't do if your partner's the one that got you fired. And so when I was in the field back then, you had to cross your T's, dot your I's, you had to be dead on, or it carried over into the other departments, especially if you were working in the area you wanted to get hired with. And at the time, I was on the list for LA County Fire, and I was working in LA County. And so these were the people in the interviews that I was running calls with. And so things had to go smooth, and I could not allow someone else to drop the ball per se, or just not own up to their mistakes and try to push it off on somewhat of me. And I would flat out tell them, don't. I will rat you out in a heartbeat if you're going to cost me my career. Simple as that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And you can fight me all you want. You can argue with me all you want. That's not a hill I'm willing to die on. It's a hill I'm willing to post up on with a 50 cal and protect it at all costs. But take responsibility for your own actions. Stop pushing it off on somebody else. It's a politician way of doing things. Just to wrap up politics there. It's a politician way. Well, we did this because of that. We did this because so-and-so did this. Stop. Own it. Just own it. That's all we're asking. The older generation, that's all we're asking of the younger generation. And we're asking of ourselves and the others of our same age. Own it. Just own it. I know. This podcast and video is all over the place just because of ADHD. I didn't write anything down. I just off the top of my head, which can be scary because listen, I know I was going to go talk about something else. We were supposed to go back and revisit that. Don't remember. I don't remember what it was. I could stop. I could play it back and I could come back in here and edit it back in. But to be honest with you, I'm not going to do that. Why? I'm owning my mistake. I've already forgotten what we were going to talk about later. So if you were waiting for that, I'm sorry. Listen, I tell you what, if you are wanting to know what I was going to talk about, drop me a comment below and maybe we'll do a part 2 video. How about that? That's the best I got for you. I can't anymore. Anyways, with that being said, we'll see you on the next one. Keep lounging.